What's up in War Eagle, everybody? You got Ike Jones, and we are here live talking about what just happened. Alabama State takes down St. Francis in a very um, March Madness like fashion, right? Had to come back in the second half of the game and get a Hail Mary throw to the other end and a layup after a scramble in order to get the victory there versus St. Francis 70-68, which means that we now know who the matchup will be for the Auburn Tigers in this game. It will be the Alabama State Hornets versus the Auburn Tigers. Um, Come on in here and let's talk about this game and the potential what we will see as the matchup versus Auburn. Please make sure you share the live with somebody. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of the necessary things, and let's just have a quick conversation about this game. I'll try to get a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown for you guys. It's gonna be a long night for me sitting up. I'm about to be like I'm on the staff at Auburn watching late night film on Alabama State to try to get prepared for this game um, before the game on Thursday. So probably sometime tomorrow, I'll have that video ready for you guys breaking down that team a little bit more decisively. But we'll just get preliminary reactions and your thoughts if you had an opportunity to watch the game. So again, thank you to everybody who is in here. And let's get into this conversation. For the vast majority of this game, I did not love what I saw from Alabama State on the offensive end. I felt like they forced a lot of shots. But what I did like about this Alabama State team, and a thing that I think mirrors some of the things that give Auburn problems, is they have a very tenacious and athletic defensive team, right? So they're going to get out and they're going to pressure, they're going to play zone, and they're really going to try to force turnovers versus Auburn in this game versus St. Francis. When you get into the statistics of it, Alabama State was able to force 15 turnovers, right? 15 turnovers, only turned the ball over 6 times. So that's really going to be what is going to be the calling card, I think, of this team. They're not a great rebounding team. They're not really great at anything on the offensive end, but what they do very well is they get up and they pressure and they have athleticism. They've got some size. They have the ability, it looks like, to stretch the floor with at least 4 of the 5 guys that are going to be out there on the floor at any time. So Auburn's going to really have to be on their defensive principles. Now, I think, I mentioned this if you were in there on the watch party with me. I think one thing about this Alabama State team that you saw in this game that you likely will not see as much against Auburn is they shot a lot of threes, but I think it's because St. Francis kind of invited those 3-point shots with the way that they were playing that zone. Auburn's not going to play that kind of defense. They're really going to get up and they're going to pressure and they're going to try to force you to drive against the length that they have. And Auburn just needs to do a good job of making sure that they're stopping the downhill drives, because once Alabama State got into downhill drive mode versus St. Francis, that's when their offense to me came alive a little bit. Now, they didn't have a ton of good assists out of that drive, so they weren't looking to pass a lot when they got into drive. They are driving to score for the most part with those guards, but they were getting downhill and they were making some tough finishes there in the lane. So that's going to be the thing. You've got some good defensive guards there for Auburn that should be able to defend against what they have out there for Alabama State, but they do have some shot makers on that team on the exterior. Knox was the leading scorer, and he's the guy I think that got the last second put back there. 16 points from him on 8 of 5 shooting in the game for Alabama State. Let's look at the full breakdown of his stat line. Didn't make any 3-pointers in that game. Didn't knock it in. The free throws was awful, right? Like, they made 1 of 4 free throws in this game. Did not do a good job of shooting free throws. They're 70-something% free throw shooting team on the year. So I don't know that that's necessarily characteristic, but they did not shoot the free throws very well in this game. Boards, they only had 12 offensive boards the entirety of the game against a team in St. Francis that does not rebound very well. 23 total boards in this game. 35 total boards in this game. I did not see, I think, a very ferocious rebounding team that Auburn's going to be facing. Scrappy, but did not see a lot of effort and fight on the boards. Like St. Francis, they were playing zone for the vast majority of this game, but they do pressure, I think, a little bit better in their zone because they have some different kinds of athleticism out there on their wings to be able to do that. And they'll full court press. They did a little trap, not too much, but they definitely are going to try to speed you up defensively. So what I liked that I saw at 2 from them is just kind of like a fierce nature that they have of the way that they wanna go in and they wanna attack, particularly again on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, you saw some grit from them there at the end. They were, I noted this on my watch party if you guys were in there. I didn't love their shot selection, particularly when they got the game close. It seemed like they settled for threes a lot, but they did finally make one of those threes to take the lead, which they didn't relinquish after they were able to do that. I think that they do a good job of taking uh confident shots though, right? Like I think, listen, this is the shot that I've made all year. I'm going to step up, I'm going to make it in this spot. They made some of them, they missed some of them, but they were confidently shooting the shots they feel like they could get. So Auburn's not gonna they're not going to lay down for Auburn, that's for sure. This is a scrappy team that feels like they can go out there and get the victory, and Auburn's going to have to take care of the basketball. I think that's got to be priority number one. Is you can't be loose with the basketball against this team, because they absolutely do have the athletes to get out in the passing lanes, to defend up the floor. I mean, they played 10 guys in this game, so they're rotating guys pretty consistently out there to keep some fresh legs so that they can keep the pressure on the opposing team defensively. And I think ultimately that is what got them over the hump, was their ability to pressure for 40 minutes. St. Francis did a good job in the first half, I think, particularly in their half court. Now, they didn't do very much full court stuff in their half court of being very good in their defensive principles. But Alabama State, I think, had the consistency over 40 minutes to be able to defend well. And that's what eventually got them the lead, forced a couple of turnovers that got them back into the game when St. Francis had pushed it out to a bigger lead. I think it got up to 9 points at one point in time. And then subsequently, what closed it down for them at the end was their ability to force tough shots for St. Francis in the lane. And then, a couple shot clock violations, a couple of bad shots at the end, and they secured the defensive glass. So defensively, you're going up against a team in Alabama State that absolutely can go out there, compete athletically. They've got size, right? They've got a couple of guys that are true 7-footers. We looked at this a little bit. Um, Earlier, but I just want to pull this up again and look at their team. They've got a 7'1" player out there, and then they have another guy that's 6'10", and both of those guys are playing a decent amount of minutes, right? So they've got some size. Their shortest guard is 6 feet tall, right? So they don't have any guys sub 6 feet. They got 6'2", 6'3", 6'3", 6'5", 6'6", 6'2", 6', 6'2", 6'7", right? So they've got some size and athleticism on this team to be able to go out there. So it's not going to be, an overwhelming size advantage, but I do think that Auburn should have the advantage, particularly on the way that they are in the interior. But again, I think what Alabama State's going to try to do in this game is try to get the ball away from the paint by playing a lot of zone and forcing Auburn to figure out how to drive against some guards that do a good job of guarding out front, against the dribble penetration. So again, a good defensive team. Auburn just needs to make sure that they're taking care of the ball. I think Alabama State, of these two teams, is the tougher matchup for Auburn, but the glass for me is going to be the difference. Auburn needs to be able to attack the glass, get second chance points against that zone, and really do a good job of themselves trying to speed up a team in Alabama State that took care of the basketball well, against St. Francis, but also is kind of frenetic and up and down. They remind me a little bit of the Missouri team that Auburn faced already this season, in the way that they approach it without a Mitchell type of guy in the paint. Right, they're built very similarly, as far as having the size on the interior, forcing turnovers. Right, they remind me a little bit of Missouri, in that regard. But as far as, again, I'll get more into the specifics of this team as I look at some more film on them, and then I get deeper into their analytics to give you guys a really good breakdown. But we do again know who the matchup's going to be for Auburn on Thursday. That is Alabama State. Let me get over here into the chat, see what y'all are talking about. Susan says, "What a good game! It was a really good game. Love to see that out there." Jay Peterson, Patterson echoes that that was a good game, sloppy play, but it was entertaining for sure. Went right down to the wire. Um, James Barnett says, reminds me of the heartbreaker Tennessee put on Bama. Um, nah, that shot, as improbable as the fumbling of all that stuff. Well, I don't think it doesn't remind me of that Bama situation. But anytime that you can mention that situation for Bama, I'm with it. Anthony Grant says they're very scrappy. That is a true statement right there. Very scrappy team. also says we should dominate in the paint, though. That's where Auburn should have the advantage. I don't like really. I mean, here's the thing. I didn't see anything from St. Francis that threatened the paint for Alabama State, particularly offensively. Let's see if we have any statistics on points in the paint. It was 34-20 in favor of Alabama State points in the paint, which is a like if you looked at the half, Alabama State was shooting a lot of outside shots, not really going to the line. They really went in and they drove downhill a lot in the second half. Now, here's what's going to be interesting. It's going to be what the whistle is like because this Alabama State team fouled a lot in this game. Very physical on drives, very physical on post up attempts. They are a team that is going to try to be physical for the vast majority of this game. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the whistles are going to be like in this game. If they're going to just let them play and, it to me, it benefits the hungrier team when you're just letting them play. Um, so Auburn's going to have to come out here with some hunger and not feel like they can just go out here and give a beat effort and walk away with a win. This game's going to be a lot tighter than people think it is if Auburn comes out here and they're sloppy because Alabama State will take advantage of that. But having said that, the teams that Auburn has played this year that are built similarly to what Alabama State is, Auburn has done a fairly good job. The Ole Misses, the Missouris of the world, the Vanderbilt's, right? Vanderbilt's a little undersized, but those teams that have been built in that way, which function off of live ball turnovers, getting out in transition, that sort of thing, Auburn's done a decent job against those teams this season. So again, they send teams to the free throw line a healthy amount. So we'll see what Auburn is able to do versus that Alabama State defense. Get back over here into the chat a little bit. Bingo, very proud for the Alabama State Hornets. They played in beast mode mentality. Congrats to them for sure. The sacrificed says them guys are tough. We got to be on our game. They shoot well from three also. I don't know how well they actually shoot from three, honestly. Like on the season, they're a low 30s team. And I think that played out as you got into the game a little bit, right? They shot 31% on the game. They hit 9 threes. They took almost 30 threes in that game, right? So they took a lot of threes. And so, shooting 30% when you're shooting almost 33s will get you a lot of threes in that game. I don't know that they shoot it well, though. I wouldn't go that far. See, Thomas Porterfield says, I'm looking for hotel rooms. Head into Lexington, baby. I love it. We'll see you there. Auburn wins. And we will be, so we're going to be in the building. The War Report will be there. So hopefully we'll run into some of you guys in Lexington. James says they also had 29 points from their bench. Absolutely. Bench scoring was a huge differentiator in this game. Like St. Francis, the guys from their bench didn't contribute almost at all in this game. So Alabama State definitely had a distinct advantage on bench points in this game. Let's see. What else do we have here? Ephesians says it will be a good test for the Auburn guards to stop the drives from the Alabama State guards. Auburn is not good at stopping the drive, so maybe we can get it right with this one. I don't know that I agree that Auburn is bad at stopping drives, particularly here. Again, what I will say is you didn't get to see a lot of what the action was against a man situation is. Hold on, my battery's not plugged in here. Let me get this settled. I think my laptop was about to die in all this transition. It still doesn't. It's not getting charged for some reason. If my laptop dies, it just dies. But the the way that St. Francis guards made it difficult for them to stop downhill drives. Alabama State ran a lot of ghost action on their screens. So that's not gonna. The Auburn guards will do a much better job defending in that regard. So we'll see. How much do you think Alabama's or Auburn's going to be favored by versus Alabama State? Probably like it'd probably be over 20 points. Um, R to the says, did they flop a lot? I only caught the end of the game. They didn't do a lot of flopping in this game. They actually played tough in the paint and just really played straight up. Um, Dranas says the refs seems like they let them play a bit of a physical game that plays into Auburn's favor. Again, I think it plays into the hungrier team's favor. So if Auburn plays hungry, then it will benefit them. I think Alabama State's a physical team though, so Auburn's not just going to be able to push them around, but they do, I think, have a physicality advantage overall. So we will see what happens in this one. Again, I will have a more in-depth breakdown for this one for you guys tomorrow night, because I will have had more time to go find some film on Alabama State outside of this game to see some of the other action they run. I might even do a film review. So Green Name Gang, y'all could be on the lookout for that and see if I can get y'all some film up on this one. I'll see what I can do in that regard. But I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you guys jumping in with me. Instant reaction. Alabama State takes down St. Francis. Next up for them will be the Auburn Tigers on Thursday in Lexington, and we will definitely have more on that game as it approaches. Make sure you hit the like button before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel before you get out of here. Make sure you share the content with somebody. I'm out of here until the next time, and as always, War Eagle. Peace.